Call the meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education in session, and we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by the start. Oh, they're not here?
They're here.
Okay. All right. Y'all want to do that?
Raise your hand.
All right.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got some special recognitions and presentations.
But we're going to start with Stoner Creek, Mr. Chair. We have some young people from Stoner Creek Elementary that are going to teach us something. And their teacher, Mr. Reddick, who has been with the system for 16 years, but just recently, for last year's, the art teacher. And I must say, an art teacher extraordinaire.
Thanks.
Well, I've witnessed the good work there. And these students are so excited to teach us something new. And this young lady right here, she just can't hardly contain herself. So she's going to teach all of us something, right? Okay, Ms. Reddick.
All right. Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I know from what I understand, you allow the arts, either music or the art teachers to come in. And I just really appreciate that. As she said, being a classroom teacher and then moving into the art teacher position, I've seen both sides of the spectrum. And I really appreciate you allowing us to come, because I do feel the arts incorporate everything that we want our children to learn. I hope you see that in just a second. I've got one student here from every grade, so 6 kids from kindergarten through 5th. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to line them up, y'all. Is that okay? But I want you to be able to see that. Is that okay? So Neil, I just want to give it online. Right? So you can get your picture. All right, Bailey, why don't you go first? They're actually in order.
My name is Bailey and I'm in kindergarten. I'm going to tell you how we made rainbow fish. First we drew a big body with a face. Then we drew a little mouth. We put a little line in the middle to be a smile. Then we drew a little fin on the top, then we drew a fin on the bottom. We actually drew 2 on the bottom, and then we drew a tail. We made little scales, and we left some of them silver, and some of them are different colors. Then we made seaweed. Then we could draw the wise octopus, or we could draw a starfish, or we could do both. And we drew little fishies. Then we painted it blue to represent the ocean.
Wow. Move the line, keep picture first.
Let me look on the line. Behind the line. Let Bailey hold the line.
No. The line goes, there you go.
Talk loud.
My name is Brenner and I am in 1st grade. I made this because the school is having the Lion King play. And in art we were learning about the animals. I made it by drawing the head and body with pastel. And then I painted it. I like art. It is really fun.
Hey, Brenner, tell us about Lion King and that they should go.
Thursday.
They're invited Friday or Saturday.
Show the poster.
If you've never been to a Stoner Creek play, you really should. You would be in for a treat.
Hi, my name is Kyle and I am in 2nd grade. We did a project about the artist named Jenna. It is
y'all hear that? Here, go. What she was saying, if you couldn't hear, is we learned about an artist named Brito, and then ironically at Build-A-Bear right now, they're doing Brito art on the bear. So you can go to Build-A-Bear and make one too, is what she said. That's the second project that we had to show you, sorry. You gotta talk loud.
We made a love for Valentine's, and you can put on 3D glass, and then this will, and the red will pop out the crust, and then the orange, and then the yellow, but the blue will stay in the background. And the green will pop out a little, and the purple will too.
Ask this lady right here. Say, I'll show her the 3D. If you put on 3D glasses, it pops out in 3D is what she was saying. So we brought 3D glasses if you want to see it.
Hello, my name is Cameron and I'm in 3rd grade. This Reddit taught us about the rose window in Notre Dame, the cathedral in Paris. We then made our own windows using symmetry to help us. And this is one of my rose windows I made. Hello, my name is Devin, and I built this ugly doll. This Reddit and my student friends, and Miss Reddit taught me how to sew, and my friends sew.
Everybody in 4th grade.
Everybody in 4th grade, I mean, and we got a piece of paper. We folded it in half, and we draw the picture, like the half of the picture that we made. And the pattern, yeah. Then we cut it out. Then we unfold it. Then we could get the cloth, put it on there, and like sew it, and cut it out and sew it together. And that's it. My name is Annabeth, and I am in 5th grade. And I'm just going to talk about something a little different. I am personally in art club. It's from 3rd grade to 5th grade. And I was 17 out of 100 students that tried out. About. And this is the piece of art that I turned in to try out for it. We took watercolor and mixed it together. And then we put glue on it and did different designs and let it dry. And we also put sea salt on it, so it kind of gave it a little sparkle. And it's the art piece that started it all. This painting I turned in and I got accepted into art club. It is an abstract piece of art, which I personally love to do because it helps, because you can look at it and see what you want to see. I originally thought art club was just going to be about learning different art techniques and different things on how to paint. But right now we are learning about origin countries and different traditions. One of my favorite art club projects was the ugly dolls, which is what he made too. Miss Reddit gave us the material, thread, and felt to help us design and make the dolls. We made them for the kids that were in the hospital near Christmas time. Their faces lit up like Christmas trees. We also gave them letters and hoped that they got well soon and we cared about them very much. And our artwork made a difference in other people's lives, and that's what really counts. And here are a few pictures of, I did not deliver them, but our good friend Kendall Flyden.
We took the dolls to Summit Hospital.
Yeah.
And the kids got them if they were sick in the hospital. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see 3D art, we've got 3D glasses.
Ms. Ray, thank you so much, and the obvious talent that you have developed in these young people, and you can see the joy and the sparkle in their eyes as they were talking about their particular project. So, thank you so much.
All right, hold your pictures up for me.
Here. Which one you want? That one work?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Three my niece and nephews.
He asked me if you can have it.
I can have another dog. Dog. So this is mine?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I will display this in my office.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Frame it.
Well, I can do that then.
All right, there you go.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
That was very nice. You can give it away.
Yes, Carol Fair.
Ms. Farrell?
You will come forward.
That's a hard act to follow.
Mr. Chair, we're here tonight to recognize Ms. Farrell as principal of Carroll Oakland School, the Cedar Tree Award, which was recognized as a 2015 presented to Carroll Oakland School for a significant contribution which shows individuality and is an example of excellence in preserving and or improving our physical environment and is in keeping with the heritage of Lebanon. And so the Beautification Committee recognized you with that, as well as Cedar Tree Award, that would be a plaque at the school. And we also, as far as the night that you were recognized, again, on February the 9th, 2016. And it was also, Carroll Oakland was also recognized as far as TSBA, as far as one of the outstanding renovations. So, again, thank you. Yay, we're proud of it. We love our building.
Thank you.
Additional recognitions.
Mike Miko, Nathan Morgan, Lebanon High School culinary. Welcome, Bob.
And quite frankly, we might as well call Wilson Central is, let's see, is Jeremy Jernigan here? Is Nicole there?
Our competitor.
There's certain congratulations to go to both the culinary arts programs, both at Lebanon High School and Wilson Central. However, they have moved into really elite status. And just to give you an idea, as far as, again, they've won many awards this year, but they've moved it to a different level. We received a letter, both schools, and said, this is, I'm going to read what was mentioned in this. Your hospitality program has been named to the 2016 Elite 50, an annual selection of the top 50 secondary school hospitality programs from across the nation. More than 350 schools designated as hospitality programs of distinction were invited to apply for the honor of being named to the Elite 50 list. Your program was chosen based on the high quality of hospitality training and experiential learning opportunities you offer. This recognition is well-deserved and confirms your place among the best hospitality schools in America. And usually that's reserved past high school. It's post-secondary. And usually you might see one, but we have two outstanding programs within the district. So, in congratulating not only the Lebanon High School Culinary Arts Program, but also the Wilson Central. And so as a certificate, as far as looking at Lebanon High School, Mr. Miko and Lindsay Morgan. And then Jeremy, here's the Wilson Central High School recognition as well. And again, if you have never had the opportunity to see what the young people, I know several students are in here, and some of those, she's my perennial favorite there because she waits on me. But if you've never had the opportunity to see what these young people produce at that level in high school, it's absolutely outstanding. And you have to remind yourself that you're not in a top-ranked restaurant. And then when you have the instructors that go with it, in fact, if you also need good recipes, this is the place to go. So, thank you again for all that you do for Wilson County Schools. Thank you.
Mr. Walters, Mr. Moss, y'all come forward, talk about your program. Mr. Bunch, I think is here with us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Scott Walters, Principal at Lebanon High School, Melissa Bunch, Science Teacher Extraordinaire, and Mr. Moss,
Yes, ma'am.
CTE Director. And I've asked them to come forward and give a little bit of a discussion as far as what they are presenting. And if you look at the special course section that they're presenting to the state, it'll give you a little bit, but not the path that they've been on as far as to get there. So I've asked them to present to you what they're proposing and what they're looking as far as what they're getting ready to launch at Lebanon High School. So, Mr. Walters.
I'm going to give a brief introduction and then hand it over to Ms. Bunch, who's the expert here. But we know that STEM careers and STEM education is rising and becoming of great interest across the state and country. We know there's a lot of different programs across the country. We want to do something that was unique at Lebanon High School that would offer some different opportunities maybe than or what elsewhere in the county. We have a lot of robotics programs, and we decided we want to do something a little different than that. And so we have tapped into some expertise within our own building and researched a little bit in different states and had lots of interest from universities that are nearby. We kind of began with discussing some things with a couple of them that would help us out with dual credit opportunities that would reach beyond high school, and then several more universities kind of came out of the woodwork when they heard what we were working on and wanted to work with us as well. So that's been really exciting. So our STEM program is based in biotechnology, which would involve lots of research with medicines and different things related to science and labs and lots of things that Ms. Bunch knows a lot about. So I'm going to let her talk to you more about what's in the presentation, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for having us here tonight. So what we want to do at Lebanon is create a very unique program for an area that has been very underserved in our state. We are all familiar that STEM education is kind of on the forefront of everything right now, and that's a big push in education. And biotechnology is one area that fills that niche very, very well, because it covers the gamut of everything from science to technology to engineering and the use of mathematics. So just if you didn't know, biotechnology is just the use of biology with technology, usually with a product focus. And I've talked about STEM, we'll just go ahead and keep on to that. In Tennessee, these numbers came from a publication that the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development put out in October of 2014. And this shows that in 2012, there were 252,000 STEM employees in the state, and they expect this to increase by 43,000 by the year 2020.
I just know I teach adjunct at Lipscomb University as well, and we have a hard time finding students ready to enter our biology and especially our chemistry programs. And I know that other local universities do as well. In fact, I'm working with a colleague from Vol State, and he has had businesses call him and say, we've got to find some students. They cannot find the workforce that they need. And that is really where this program can serve our community in a great capacity. So what we want to do at Lebanon is actually 4 courses. The first is a course that we have purchased from a company called STEM 101, which is just kind of an introductory survey type course. And then myself and Dr. Joe Doan from Ball State are creating the other 3 courses. And the great part about this, not only would our students get high school credit for these, but they would receive college credit for these courses as well. Ball State has come on board, Belmont is on board with us, Cumberland has come on board, and I'm speaking now, hopefully I'll be able to bring Lipscomb on board as well, and also Tennessee Tech. I almost forgot that one. Tennessee Tech has come on board. So they get high school credit, they get college credit. It will increase their learning in other courses as well, their problem-solving skills. They could go directly into the workforce, or they could continue their education in the sciences in some capacity. Some of the careers that they could be prepared for to go right into after high school would be lab technician jobs, research assistant jobs. The great thing about this particular program, it does not narrow the focus to just one particular niche in the industry. They would have experience in whether they go into a biological setting or they go into a chem setting, or if they go into an actual biotech lab. And going directly into the workforce, we not only will be focusing on the science skills that they would be learning, but also skills that they would use in the workplace. Being on time, how do you function as a team member? How do you communicate with your superiors, with your subordinates, that kind of thing. And these are just some pictures from a trip that Mr. Moss and I took to San Francisco recently. We're basing this on a very successful program that has been going on for almost 20 years now in San Mateo High School right outside of San Francisco. And this is a picture of their lab, and this is what we hope to create at Lebanon High School. So this lab would hopefully in the future not only serve Lebanon High School students, but we could bring in students from other schools as well, because it would be the only one, particularly at the beginning, for the district. But we would also hope that this would spread across the state and serve as a model for other school districts. So we could be the first one in the state to have a program of this caliber.
Listen, that's a very important point, because again, a lot of schools are building STEM programs, and you've already talked about as far as the science, technology, engineering, and math, and a few places they even add an A to it as far as make it STEAM. But the thing is that when you look at that uniqueness, it's pretty broad and general when you look at some of the STEM programs. So what you are saying and proposing is being very specific in what you said as far as a niche that's not found everywhere. So this is a program that would be unique to the state.
It would be, yes. It would be very much so. And then we could hopefully, get other districts involved in propelling this in their own, and we could help train teachers and spread what we've learned.
Are you building a curriculum?
Myself and Joe Doan from Ball State, we are working together on that, yes.
And that's a pretty arduous process as far as once you build a curriculum, you still have to go through the state approval process. But what you're also doing is stepping out and building a model for, like you said, to be replicated elsewhere.
I will have no summer.
Well, and that's what I wanted you to share, if you would, for this board, as far as your background.
Well, I started teaching a few years ago. I began my career at MLK in Nashville. I was there for 12 years. I started a molecular program there, which is still successful there. I wrote a grant to fund that program. It was funded by the Door Foundation out of New York. I served as an assistant principal in Metro, and I went to Rutherford County where I taught honors biology and honors chemistry. And this is my first year in Wilson County. So I'm really very excited to be here. I live in Wilson County. And I was very excited when my new principal, Mr. Scott Walters, approached me and said, I really want to create, a powerful STEM program, but I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. So can you help me? I said, oh yeah, I think I've got an idea or two. So.
Are there any particular needs in this area right now where this could parlay right into that? Are you looking at working with businesses to address a particular issue?
We will definitely be looking for business partners. I know, I'm just having a conversation with Joe Dolan from Ball State. A local lab in Mount Juliet actually called him back over the summer and said, Joe, I can't find any lab techs. Have you got any good students that you know that are going to be graduating soon? So there are in Middle Tennessee over 400 biotech companies.
Wow.
And they need every level of employee from high school graduate all the way up to postdoc. So we will be finding business partners. That's one of my projects over the summer, is to network and find some business partners, because I actually would like to create a committee from the industry to help me tailor exactly what we are doing with our curriculum, because I want it to be very specific to the needs of what our local businesses have at the moment.
Have an interactive program, feedback.
Right.
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to do for the next crop of students?
Exactly.
What we need to do with this crop?
Right, and the three courses that we're developing, the first course is really learning the content and the lab skills. The second course is applying that night content, where they'll be doing some independent research. And the third course, they'll be spending their time doing internships in local industry or university labs. So that will be another good learning experience, not just for the students, but for us as well, to get some valuable feedback.
And working with students, mostly as far as the matriculation path, as far as not only community college, which would be, but they can also go into a four-year university and also beyond that with this being a foundation, correct?
Yes, and a part that I actually didn't put in this, which is kind of a little side project that Joe and I are working on. Our students already take dual enrollment English and a lot of dual enrollment math and so forth. And using those hours that they get along, with the hours that they might get from their AP courses, we'll be coming up with a certificate that would be equivalent to 30 college credit hours that Ball State will honor, Belmont will honor, Cumberland will honor, Tennessee Tech will honor. So they could actually graduate from Lebanon High School and end up, if they go to Belmont, Cumberland, Tennessee Tech, end up getting a 4-year degree in 3 years.
Wow. That's great. That's great.
So it's a win-win for us, and it's definitely a win for the student.
Well, businesses in the community too.
And yes,
Especially if we can train some high schoolers that don't want to go to college, have them prepared to go right straight into the workforce with this, a certain skill set. And I think that would be a plus that they couldn't expect any other way.
hopefully, some of them that might think, oh, well, I may not even get out of here, okay, well, maybe I can do this. I can see that light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's a well-done application too, that will go to the state for approval once the board approves that as well. So again, well done.
Oh, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Thank you. Right, while we're on that, just recently saw in the paper where we've got 4 National Merit Scholars that's going to be recognized.
As far as seniors, but the process really starts, and this is something that a lot of people aren't aware that the PSAT, which is the first step as far as identifying national merit, begins in the 10th grade. And then there's a selection process that their junior year. And right now, as we're looking at just junior numbers, we're pretty well, feeling pretty confident. But this year, as far as a senior recognition, we have 2 at Mount Juliet, 1 at Watertown High School, which I'm sure that you've been introduced to Deanna Upchurch because she did a presentation for us several months ago. And then there's additional 1 at one of the local private schools. And so next year, we are anticipating, in fact, I'm looking back there at Mr. Walters right now, we're anticipating a larger number because of the focus. Many students are not aware when to sit for the PSAT that is the beginning of being identified as a National Merit Scholar and then finalist. And when you get to that, you're talking about in the top 1% in the nation as far as scholarly endeavor. And that's one of our focuses.
Good, good report. All right, move right along. State from the citizen, give the delegation, is that right?
Yes, we have someone that as far as that came before you as far as approval, Chad Carl is here to present to the board.
Okay. Carl? Please state your name, your address, and subject of your presentation. Topics must be specific in nature, dealing with only the policies and procedures. We reserve the right to terminate remarks at any time that you fail to adhere to the guidelines or your comments become abusive to the individual board member, the board as a whole, the director of schools, or any employee of the school system. The board shall have no obligation to respond, and at the conclusion of your remarks, the board and the director of schools shall have the privilege to ask you questions.
Hi, thank you. My name is Chad Carl. I live at 17 Cypress Hill Drive, which is in Zone 5. We'll be in Zone 7, which is an unknown zone. I actually plan to run for school board in that zone. My nature of my talk is with the recent announcement about the SEEK program. SEEK, or the gifted program, whatever it may be called, is very near and dear to my heart. I had 2 children go through the SEEK program at West Wilson Middle. They're out of the program now. They're both at Wilson Central, but I still volunteer my time because I agree with what those teachers do. I enjoy being with those kids. They're very, very bright kids, and I think like everybody else, I'm very, very concerned that that may be turned upside down. I've spent an hour or more talking with Dr. Rice. I'll try to keep it to 3 minutes, and I appreciate her giving me her vision. I've also talked with teachers and parents, and I think what we have here is people probably 80% agree with what they want to do. But right now we're in I think everybody is fearful for, instead of tweaking something, it's going to be dumped upside down. And I think like when I read the press release, I saw, I'm an engineer, I love STEM, but STEM without creativity and art just becomes building blocks. There's no creativity to it. So we need to keep, however it's done, we need to keep the SEEK program in a small group where kids feel safe. These are a lot of kids that may not be mainstream or the cool kids, but in a safe environment they shine. Where if they're in a traditional classroom or even just a regular classroom that's accelerated, they'll do well on tests, but they won't speak. They won't kind of really blossom. And so I'm afraid that through budget constraints and other things, these classes may get smaller, they may get shoved to the end of the day, they may become a club, and I think that's wrong. So I'd like to, I'm really asking for is that we go forward with this whole year of SEEK that's going to be extended, that we use this as a year to try to improve it from within. So try to find out what's good about it, and let's keep those things, and what can be improved about it. And I think there is a communication gap sometimes where, I know Dr. Wright, you had told me about wanting to do national, whether Science Olympiad or something like that, or wanting to go to, have teachers go to national or local conventions to learn more. In talking with some of the teachers, they used to do those things. In fact, I think it was the international or future problem solvers. And they, we had a team actually won a national or international competition, but then you get to budget constraints, and then, well, it was, then that was kind of unfunded, so they did their internal thing. And so I think, and the same thing with some of the seminars that some of these teachers used to go, and then it became a budget constraint, and then it was few and far between. But I really truly believe that the teachers want to do the things that you have proposed. But I think everybody's just very fearful right now of, do I have a job? Is it up in the air? The kids are panicked, are they going to take it away? And when people have fear, they clam up, and they don't talk, and they don't communicate. So I would love for, and I think it needs to be children, it needs to be parents, it needs to be teachers, it needs to be the administrators of the school, because they're charged with a very difficult job of scheduling all this. And it needs to be the central office and the board as well, because if it is important, it needs to be funded. We can't just say do this without the funding that's there. And that's really just the gist of my remarks in a short period, but I'd be happy to talk with anybody further on that.
Anybody have questions? All right. Is that it?
Well, I don't know that I have a question for where do we stand today on C, Ms. Dyer?
And that's gonna be brought in my report in a few minutes. I'm
Okay.
gonna discuss it.
Student board members.
Y'all jump at the same time?
Alright, I'm gonna be two people tonight, because someone got sick today and texted me, and I'm gonna be from Wilson Central tonight and Lebanon, so, but I just have, oh, do you?
No.
What?
Please come up.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Just gonna, all right. I don't know. Okay, sorry, I forgot. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Lebanon. So we just got back, our student council just got back from the Tennessee Association of Student Councils convention this past weekend, so I just want to run over our awards that we won. We got 4-Star Council, which was our first time since 2003 that we got that. The Above and Beyond went to Francisco Huerta. Member of the Year was myself. We also placed third in the Attitudes category for our project Walters on the Shelf, and we placed third in collaboration for our White Out for Wit with Wilson Central. Tomorrow is our Stop Hunger Now event that we're packing food for people around the world. I don't know exactly where the food's getting sent, but tomorrow we're starting to pack the food, and our goal was to raise, I think it was $6,000. I'm not sure where we are on that fundraising, but we actually did a few fundraisers. We had a student-faculty basketball game that the faculty won by just 1 point, so that was fun. And then after our basketball game, Mr. Walters was pied in the face. We raised money during lunch that whole week, and whoever assistant principal had the most money at the end of the week, they got pied in the face. We also had a video game tournament at Zaxby's night, and then tomorrow we're packing food. We recently had our Best Buddies prom, so our club went downtown and had fun together. Our girls
What do you
got
mean by Best Buddies? Not everyone understands.
So Best Buddies is actually a new club to Lebanon, and it partners with our CDC department, and I don't know all the gist of it, but I do know that students are paired with a student in the CDC class. So they go on trips together and do outings together. So their prom was just kind of one of those fun things they got to do together, which was really fun. They all got to dress up and go downtown and just have fun together to spend the night. So it was really fun for them. Our girls and boys basketball teams ended with great seasons. We're really proud of them. Currently, boys soccer, tennis, baseball, and softball are all going on. And if you want to find out more about those seasons, our new sports page just got uploaded. So if you go to our website, it's up there somewhere. You can find it. And then last Friday we had our blood drive. That was a huge success. A lot of people donated blood. Now for Wilson Central. So Wilson Central girls varsity basketball team plays in the first round of state on Wednesday at 1:15 in the Murphy Center in Murfreesboro. Many students plan to attend to support the Lady Wildcats by either pet bus or driving. They had a very successful weekend at TASC as well, and they received the following awards. So they received 4-Star Council, which was 1 out of 22 high schools in the state. The Platinum Council, 1 out of 6 high schools in the state. First place, Education Division of Outstanding Projects for Wildcat Welcome Camp. Second place in Service Division of Outstanding Projects for Making the Cut. Second place in Collaboration Division of Outstanding Projects for Wits Ribbons. Second place, Scrapbook Historians Miranda Groom and Braden Hammer. Third place, Council T-Shirt Leadership League. And then individual awards above and beyond went to Destiny Carter, and Member of the Year went to Ansley Barber. All-Star Career Points 60 earned through participation in SASC and TASC. Tyler Burden, Brooke Allen, Miranda Groom, Kendall Jennings, Simone Anthony, Jaslyn Douglas, and Braden Hammer. Impact Career Points 130 earned through participation in SASC and TASC. Michaela Ruckman, James Winey, and Alexis Atherton. The annual spring musical Into the Woods is March 17th through the 20th. And they had over 50 students from their school volunteer to work the polls last Tuesday. So we're really proud of those who took advantage of that opportunity. And our their dance department semester show is coming up March 31st and April 1st at 7 in the auditorium. And we always have a great turnout, and it's always packed, and the show is always very entertaining. So if you guys like to attend that, I'm sure they'd have fun seeing y'all there.
Simone Anthony was out. She went home sick today, so she was kind enough to forward her information to Alexis.
Okay, here we go. I'm Austin Walls. I'm from Watertown, and we have had not very eventful months, but I will give you the gist of it anyways. We recently had basketball, which ended in regionals, I believe. We placed second in district, so that was fun, both boys and girls. We recently hosted All Sing, which was a very big thing for the choir and the chorus departments. All the schools came. It was a big turnout. They said it was the biggest they've ever had. We recently had a National Merit Finalist, which is the first for Watertown. We were very proud. Her sister is actually over there in the audience. Won't call her out or anything, but let's see. We recently announced the top 10, and I'll name those in descending order. 10, we had Brooke George. 9, Hannah Zachary. 8, Kinley Pressure. 7, right? 7, Daisy Clute. 6, Zach Grisham. 5, Megan Eilenberg. 4, Grant Dushek. 3, Mitchell Clute. Salutatorian, Deanna Church again, and valedictorian is myself. Our tennis, baseball, soccer, volleyball, and softball seasons are all coming up. In fact, our first tennis match is this Wednesday, so if you want to come out and support us, go right ahead. I will be making a fool of myself. So, prom is April 16th at 6:30 to 10, so I don't know if y'all got invitations, but if you did, dress up. Graduation is, I'm not counting anything, 74 days away on May 19th at 6:30, so come out and support us. It should be short because we only have 78, so that's all I've got, but thank you.
I'm Jonas Sage for Mount Juliet High School. So for sports, we've got baseball coming up, and usually after basketball season ends, we do radio for the baseball season. So with me, along with a couple other people doing it with me, you can always hear us on Mixler, WBNM radio. We just search that, you can always hear us on every baseball game. For basketball, ladies basketball ended in regional semifinals. We lost against Wilson Central, who was still undefeated. So, I mean, we lost by like 9 or 8. That was pretty decent for a team that hasn't lost. And then for men's, we actually played tonight at Hillsborough, and that's a sectional game. And if we win that game, we get to go to state. And that's pretty lucky for me because the radio team, including myself, will have to go to MTSU and broadcast that game. So I'm hoping for that because then we don't have any school, or at least we skip school. So I'm not saying I don't like school, but I'd much rather be watching a basketball game than that game. So that's exciting. So for Interact Club, we've been doing a lot of things recently and upcoming projects. For example, this Saturday, Mount Juliet Middle School is hosting a 5K and fun run, and we'll all be able to help them out, hand out water or even participate in it. And it's for a PTO fundraiser, so they can buy, class items, pencils, backpacks, all that. Taste of Mount Juliet this April. It's usually where we get a bunch of local businesses together in Mount Juliet, and a bunch of people, whether they're in school or even away out of the, not even there, they get to come together and try out some of the new businesses that are trying to receive attention. So that's always nice, and we always like to support them. Joseph Storehouse this March. It's always the last weekend of every month, so if anyone wants to come out and support that, feel free, more than welcome to. We always just give out food to people who need it, so that's always nice to do. And the big thing is for radio, and we've been talking with Mel Brown, me and Ryan Ruppel, about a couple weeks ago. We talked about, you know, getting an antenna on top of the school, and we could finally go to an AM station. And what that means is people in their car can tune in to basketball or baseball games or football games all across the year, and they can hear it from about 2 miles away. And we're planning on doing this throughout other areas across the county. So all across Wilson County, they can hear, you know, if a basketball game is going on, if it's a close game, they can always tune in. So, I mean, it does cost an amount of money, like $1,000. So we're planning on doing a fundraiser and meeting up with Mr. Brown and seeing how that'll work out. Nothing's official yet, but it's just what's going on right now, and I'm pretty excited to hear about that. Other news, student elections coming up this month. You know, usually we have posters in the cafeteria about, you know, doing all the going president, vice president. The current officers are going to help out with that, make everything straight, nothing, you know, too crazy. Best Buddies also had a prom. That was fun. You can always see them throughout the day. You know, people at Best Buddies always going with their partner from CDC, always walking around the halls. That's always nice, and they're always looking like they have a really fun time. Prom is also this April. That'll be fun. If any of you want to dress fancy, if I'm not familiar, that's also fun. And I'd also like to acknowledge Taylor Saville. She's a finalist in the National Merit Scholarship. She's one of only 3 in the county and 16,000 across the nation. So it's really cool to have at our school.
While they're leaving, I believe, correct this, about Manchurian baseball, and I see where that they have 4 athletes that have already signed Division I scholarships off this year's baseball team. So ladies and gentlemen, that's quite an accomplishment to have 4 Division I scholarship players off of your high school baseball team. So I'd say Coach Purvis has probably set a pretty good position down this year with baseball. And also, don't forget Wilson Central Girls, Wednesday, 115, 32, 33 no? Something like that. Got a great year, been a good year for all of our fall sports. All right, Doc, right, is that it for you?
That's it.
All right, your motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Withers, second by Ms. Armstead. Any discussion? Adopt the agenda. Okay, let's go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving right along. Report from the county attorney.
Adopt the agenda first.
Oh, I thought we did.
You went to the consent agenda first.
Okay, adopt the agenda. I'm getting my head myself, I want to hear about you baseball game. Adopt the agenda. Now your motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Armstead, second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor of adopting the agenda, vote aye. Okay, now we got that back. Now we're ready for the county attorney.
I won't hold you up long, Mr. Chairman. I'll be able to hear the ball game out here. Nobody that comes out too well. I was going to congratulate Austin for being valedictorian, and he left, but he continues in a long line of outstanding valedictorians there. It started back in 1972. In case y'all are curious who that was me. It started right then. We started with 66, and several of our young ladies didn't make it toward the end. I'll leave that to your imagination. Two matters I need to report on. The termination case against Mr. Mock. He did appeal to the Chancery Court. It has not been there 30 days yet, and there's no trial date set in that. And the mixed drink tax case continues in Chancery Court. There's nothing happening on it right now. We did have the motion to dismiss us out as being an improper party to bring the suit. That was denied. We are the proper party under the Supreme Court turned down the appeal on the case from the Court of Appeals and said the school board's other proper parties to bring that. So we're in and we'll see where it goes from there. So those are the two things that I really have, unless you have some questions of me.
Anybody have any questions for Attorney Jennings?
We accept his report.
Motion to accept his report. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Armstead. All in favor of accepting the county attorney's report? Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There shall be pass unanimously. Director of Schools report, Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have my report in front of you, and you also have the latest financial report packet as well. So those are two things that were handed out. Just to note that we've already mentioned as far as the Mount Juliet boys basketball team starting in about 7 minutes, playing at Hillsborough, taking on Hillsborough High School, and then the Wilson Central High School girls beat, then I'm using the paper term as far as thrashed Ravenwood Saturday night, and will advance Wednesday at 1:15 against Memphis Central. You also have a copy of the recently updated annexation map for the city of Mount Juliet. Again, according to the documentation received from the city of Mount Juliet, this annexation will not have any effect on the school system, but I still think it was important information for you to have available. I've also made note of the Wilson County Planning Department updating their comprehensive plan, and they're hosting several informal sessions, and I have those listed out for you as well. The March 3rd, March 8th date tomorrow at Gladeville Elementary at 6 to 8 p.m. And part of it's simply to get some information out, but also give the public an opportunity to get some information and receive feedback on addressing the growth in the county. There's a little piece there I'll let you read as far as Karen Young, who's the STEP liaison, was notified about a high school student who qualified under the McKinney-Vento Act, which is the Homeless Act, where we identify kids that are displaced without a home and services that we make sure that we provide for them. But there's a nice little story there just for you to read later as far as how we try to make sure that we can not only help and assist the students, because that's a growing number, not only in this county but across the state, and making sure that they have not only a taste of success, but they're cared for while they're attending our schools. The Adult High School 2016 graduate Ashley Grader was sworn into the United States Navy on February the 23rd, and that was something, again, as far as that not only Mary Ashby and school counselor Patty Huffman were there to serve as witnesses to her induction into the U.S. Navy. That's always a good story and something that we're quite proud of our adult high school. There's just some notes there as far as the parent-teacher conferences, looking at just the number 6,600 conferences took place in our elementary and middle high schools up to this point in time. And that's something that, it's unfortunate that's required by the state, but then we go over and beyond as far as meeting with parents. You have the graduation ceremonies posted there in front of you, and then also the breakout as far as the bid openings for phase 1 of our building program. As you see, that new central office that was opened on the 23rd of February. The new elementary in Mount Juliet was March the 3rd, and then coming forward, it's Gladeville Edition, Tucker's Edition, Southside Edition, and then Watertown Elementary. In addition to the report, as promised, as best as we were getting information, keeping you updated with what's been transpiring with the 10 Ready situation. And as I said, I've kept you posted with a daily post, really, of what was occurring. And up until Friday of last week, there were 18 districts still remained that had not received their tests. And with that, there was a phone call late Friday afternoon that possibly we would receive them no later than Tuesday of this week. We were informed at 8 o'clock this morning that the tests were to be delivered between 12:30 to 2:30, which would be grades 3 through 8, and then Algebra 1A and 1B for the high schools, which tends to be year-long. And then the schools were assured last week, and this becomes very important for the board to understand, the assurances that I gave to the schools last week that they did not have to and would not reschedule any events as far as that they had planned for the next 2 weeks, that we would work around them. There were school pictures already scheduled. We had some plays that were going to take that were scheduled during the day. We had field trip that had been rearranged from previous schedules. And I looked at some of the elementary teachers because they'd already made some arrangements. And then we have the state playoffs for Wilson Central this week, Wednesday and Friday. I'm saying Friday because I see them there Friday. But the thing that became important that, yes, we have the testing, we had assessments, but we were not going to create a disruption in our schools and would still keep the protocols, the procedures in place, but making sure that our kids could still maintain the activities that had been planned in good faith. I think we've had to make one, maybe, arrangement. There's a lot of work to get these tests ready. They arrived not at 12:30 to 2:30, but I guess it was about 11 o'clock. We had our first shipment of grades 3 through 8. The truck drove up to this parking lot to deliver, and we had to direct them elsewhere. And then later received the high school tests. They have to be labeled, they have to be sorted, then they have to be distributed to the schools. So our testing will not start until Thursday. Looking at Thursday, Friday, and then picking up again possibly Monday and Tuesday. But again, we're working with schools that need some flexibility in that scheduling. And again, we're going to, that's something that, you know, not only we've made the state aware, but again, they understand the need for flexibility and what we're going to do to make it as painless as possible and then move from there. The thing that we have asked as far as the schools to let us know and let Jennifer, particularly Jennifer Coffins there, our testing coordinator, if there's any adjustment that needs to be made, we're documenting as far as what that adjustment might need to be, as far as whether it's a timing or whatever it might be. The other thing that we're making sure that there's been in times past in the paper testing that students had to sit quietly until a test was completed. And what, not only with direction from the state, which they listen to school districts, that's not really conducive, particularly for those youngsters that finish early. They can read, they can do a quiet activity. You know, it's not going to be disruptive. So that's something that we're making sure, particularly with our younger kids, that we encourage our teachers that when they're finished, that they have something that they can access as far as whether it's a book to read or something that's quiet. And that certainly wasn't something that was entertained in times past and for test security. So that was the update there. The second thing I wanted to update everyone on was information as far as Mr. McNeese asked earlier as far as status on SEEK, and also what I was going to bring into as far as the calendar. And I'm going to ask Monty Wilson to come forward as far as in update where we are as far as the status of SEEK, but as he's coming up here, there's two things I want to note. The original plan, as far as what we were going to be discussing as far as sharing as we go through several program evaluations, and that's something that the Curriculum Instruction Department has been working on all year, that we've been sort of doing a program audit. You know, are we providing the best? Is it something that are we needing to either upgrade, change? Is it something that we've just felt fallen into the practice because we've been doing it for so long? But really critically examining the programs and activities that we have in our schools, many of them being supplements or a complement to the instruction that's being provided. And so part of the conversation took place early in January as far as looking at our talented and gifted program, which in this district is referred to as SEEK. And with that preliminary conversation, discussion, and planning, with the idea that on March the 7th, the preliminary findings would have been presented to this board. And with that, information was presented publicly on February the 21st in the headline, for lack of a better term, posted on Facebook, SEEK program to be eliminated. And from that point, it became viral. So, Mr. Wilson, if you'll come forward as far as and talk about the transitioning and the planning that's taken place up to this point, and I believe you've got a handout as well.
Got a one-page document that all of you can follow along with, and I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible, but cover certain points. It's two sides. I'm going to start with the side that does not have a chart. Where at the top it says evaluation of the current 6 through 8 SEEK program. If you'll start there, I've included some information for you. The first thing I've got is just what the Tennessee State Plan for Education of the Intellectually Gifted states as the definition, because I think there was some questions and confusion in regards to that. So this was drawn straight from that document. It states that intellectually gifted means a child whose intellectual abilities and potential for achievement are so outstanding the child's educational performance is adversely affected. Adverse effect means the general curriculum alone is inadequate to appropriately meet the student's educational needs. When it talks about adversely affected with gifted students, I also want to make mention that we don't want to adversely affect any of our students, whether they're in the bottom 1% or the top 1%. But this is how it relates to the top % of students. Next, you'll find a list of bullets of some things that we have discovered. And as Dr. Wright mentioned, discussion started taking place this year on some things maybe we need to change. However, this discussion actually started long beforehand in terms of things possibly we may need to change as well. The curriculum has not changed much in middle schools over time at all. And we started to make some changes with that this year with pre-AP. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. But this discussion started actually several years ago and has culminated into some of the information you'll find here. That first bullet does mention the inclusion of pre-AP classes, which is something we haven't had before. We, in this instance, do exceed the general curriculum in these content areas, and this is very unique. There are not many, in fact, there's not any in the mid-state area that we're aware of, to have pre-advanced placement curriculum in the middle schools and courses that have that. So that is an area where we are trying to provide more for students that are in SEEK, but also students who maybe didn't qualify for the SEEK program that are also gifted. One of the biggest issues that we found is we have inequitable services for our students in grades 6 through 8. And let me explain what that means. We have looked at the services students receive in Wilson County. Right now, the service hours can range anywhere from almost 3.5 hours per week per student to 1 hour per week, depending on your school. So clearly, the students who are in the program, where it's very consistent in the elementary grade levels and the middle schools, it is not. And primarily, the reason for that is because we have large middle schools, and we have K-8 middle schools, and we have a Watertown middle schools. And just like any other extracurricular activity or course, you're going to have less opportunity the smaller the school because you have less staff and less students. So that's just a fact. Due to this discrepancy, bullet 2 says those opportunities are not consistent in the district. That's just not a possibility. One of the issues in the larger middle schools is because they have it as a course as opposed to a pull-out time, is that they sometimes have to choose. Do I want to be in SEEK, or do I possibly want to be in band or chorus or both? They have to make a choice. So some students have to drop from the SEEK program in middle school in order to take other curricular programs. Only Mount Juliet Middle School and West Wilson Middle School have the scheduling capacity to actually have SEEK as an exploratory class. That's where students get more contact hours. Our other K through 8 schools and Watertown Middle School have to pull students out of a scheduled class or out of their RTI time to give them any service whatsoever. So clearly there's an inconsistency of the services we're providing. In our SEEK exploratory classes, one of the things we've noticed is those classes are not as full as they should be. There are low numbers. So that is an issue in terms of the financial side of things. When you have classes with less than 10 students in them, it becomes an opportunity that we are not meeting the needs of as many students as we can with personnel. In terms of the curriculum used, currently it has not been aligned to any, this is bullet 4, to any national standards for gifted curriculum. We have not done that in the middle school. That's something we need to do. That's part of our process. That's something we're planning to do moving forward. In addition, with the standards changing for Tennessee, we also don't have our units adequately aligned to some of the new standards we have in our core subjects, such as math and English, and science what it will be. So that's something we need to do as well, and we've noticed is lacking. Professional development is something that was alluded to earlier. That is something we need to continue to do a better job of. We are dedicated and we are passionate that those teachers need the professional development and education to meet these students where they are and to push them. In light of what's happening, we've realized that we have not taken the opportunity and we're not aware of some PD opportunities that are taking place almost here in our own backyard. For example, one is listed here for you that is actually this week. Through Vanderbilt University, March 10th and 11th, Program for Talented Youth Curriculum Conferences at Vanderbilt University. This is annual spring curriculum conference, highlights the most recent developments in curriculum and instruction, as well as evidence-supported models and materials found effective in promoting gifted student learning. Sessions are led by curriculum developers and nationally known experts in the field of gifted education. This is something we have not attended. To be honest, this is something we didn't know existed, and it's an annual conference. This year we are sending teachers to that this week that are in our SEEK Middle Schools program. We've also found out that our SEEK teacher certification varies among teachers. So that's one of the things we're looking to clean up, is to make sure that we have proper credentialed individuals in all those classes and that it's consistent. We have found out that participation in competitions outside of the school day is clearly almost non-existent at the middle school level. Many of you may have seen that our fourth grade students recently, I believe it was last week, went to the Invention Convention at MTSU. And we had several students who scored first in the competitions. Nothing is happening in that regard to middle school. That's something we have to change. That gives you a basic rundown of some of what our findings have been this year as we've looked at this and why we felt the need to restructure. I've also included at the bottom of that page is what our numbers for our SEEK classes will be next year by school. So you've got grades 6, 7th, and 8th by school, what our numbers are for SEEK students. What I would mention to you is that we do have less students that will be coming in 6th grade than we have as 8th grade that are leaving. So our SEEK numbers are decreasing somewhat in the county. If you flip to the second side, this gets more into what some of our plan is. First, we have an initiative. Our initiative is to improve the middle school curriculum, offerings, and opportunities for students in order to provide them a better middle school experience. This includes easing students' transition to high school while better preparing them for the rigors associated with those high school courses. Students in SEEK, along with those in the upper quintiles, will be better prepared for advanced learning in our AP classes, but also for national recognitions. And Dr. Wright has already touched on, for example, the National Merit Finalist Awards that are given. So how do we make some of these changes? Well, as Dr. Wright mentioned, our plan was to share some of that information with you today. And Dr. Wright really had a plan in place starting with last year, moving into this year. And then there's 3 steps, 3 bullets there. Phase 1 was the introduction and implementation, actually, of our pre-advanced placement courses, which is happening right now. We're in that process. Then there's phase 2A and 2B, which is what we're looking forward to do. That's develop robust enrichment courses, opportunities, and/or competitions for our best and brightest students, while also looking to restructure SEEK. We were using the term restructure. The word elimination was never used by this district. We're not planning to do that anyway. So what we've done now is we've actually made some adjustments, and what you see is a graph below you to where there's 2 columns. The left column where it says the proposed plan, that's what would have been presented to you tonight. In light of some things that happened in terms of talking with parents, Dr. Wright attended a community meeting, shared some information. We revised that plan, and that's what the second column is. So when you look at column 1, that was what we would have originally shown you. Column 2 is we're also showing you some of the changes that were made from our original plan to what we're moving forward to. And I've color-coded those to show you where there are changes and where there are consistencies. So for example, items 1 through 6, these are changes that we have made due to the fact that we have listened to our parents, and we know that you've heard from them as well. We were going to restructure SEEK next year. Now we're going to call it a transition year, which basically means we're going to continue services as is. So students who are in those SEEK classes will continue to be in those SEEK classes. Students who are only receiving 1 hour of pull-out, that's all we're going to be able to provide at this point in time. We were going to rename SEEK for the middle schools. We're not doing that now. It's going to keep the same name for a year. We were going to try to provide flexibility of services to include non-SEEK students in some SEEK-type exploratory classes or opportunities in the day. Not every student who is gifted is in SEEK. We have next year, for example, at West Wilson Middle School, I think Mr. Marlowe's here, he's going to have, I think, what he thinks is going to be 2 sections of geometry, correct? In 8th grade. That's never been done in this county before. Not all of those students are in SEEK, but they're clearly talented students who need to be pushed, not just in math, but in STEM as well. At this point in time, we're not going to be opening that up because we're going to keep SEEK structure as it is, which doesn't allow some of those kids in. We're going to evaluate the SEEK restructure throughout the school year. Our plan was to do that last year with the reevaluation. Since we're not going to really restructure, we're going to keep it as is. Dr. Wright is committed to us forming a SEEK advisory council next year to where we can look at this in more detail and include not just our educators here in the district, but also the students in the classes and parents of students. So we will be forming a SEEK advisory council next year, so that's a change. One of the things we were hoping to do that we knew we could do fairly easily was expand SEEK services in the elementary level of the elementary schools under the proposed restructure, where we could pick up 2nd grade. Currently, we only serve 3 through 5 grade levels at the elementary level.
And to explain this, the situation with that many people do not understand, it still requires that you provide services for grades 3 through 5. So what we are saying is that we're going to go down a grade as far as an earlier identification. And so what we do in middle school is over and beyond what the state requires.
It is. So the state does only require grades 3 through 5. We extend that to 6 through 8. But we were hoping with the restructure and changing of things, we would have the staff capacity to drop down to 2nd grade, which is something our SEEK teachers are wanting and something that parents have wanted. We're hoping we can still do that, but we've got to look at numbers first. We can't guarantee that with the staffing we have right now. So those are the changes.
Do we
Yes,
have
sir.
a program suited for the 2nd graders at this point, or is that something that's yet to be developed?
We've got things in place that can roll into that, but we could build on that as well. With our RTI time, we're already differentiating in 2nd grade to where students that are advanced in math and English are getting pushed in certain ways, but it's not done necessarily through SEEK teachers that have that gifted certification. It's done through regular classrooms. So we've got some structures in place, but that would take some work in terms of adding to what we have to best prepare our students and our teachers for that role.
And there's very few models in the state to follow, but there are some exemplary districts outside the state that we can look at as far as the models that are in place for the younger student.
Here's what will be staying the same. If you look through 7 through 12, these are areas that currently at this point in time there is not a change. One of the things we need to do is enhance what I just alluded to a minute ago, our RTI time, to where we're really meeting the needs of students in the SEEK program. RTI is response to intervention, and what it deals with is taking students and where they are and getting them where they need to be, not depending on that 1 percentile, the bottom 1 percentile, the top 1 percentile, and everything in between. It is a state mandate to have RTI. Next year, it's a state mandate all the way up through 12th grade. We're required to do it for students, and there is no funding involved. But we have to have a time scheduled in the day to meet students where they are and to get them to where they need to be. Whether it's if they're not proficient, we need to get them to proficiency. If they're advanced, we need to continue to push them to where they're even more advanced to where they are. What we found out in middle schools is we're not where we need to be in terms of RTI. That's not unusual. We've attended several conferences, both administrators and central office staff, and we feel like we're going to have a better plan for next year with that. One of the things we also were planning to do, we're going to continue to do, is to incorporate pre-AP extensions for our really gifted students, whether they're in SEEK or not. This is the first year in pre-AP. We've learned a lot. We've prepared teachers, but they've realized there's a lot more they need in terms of support, in terms of professional development, in terms of moving forward. We're not resting on our laurels to say we have a pre-AP program in middle school. We want to make it better. So what we want to do is to add what we are calling a pre-AP extensions, or even what's considered like a capstone activities, to where you can really push students where they are regardless of where they fall in the spectrum in terms of how advanced they are in a certain subject area. We also, we talked about professional development for our SEEK teachers. What we realized we need to do while we prepared our pre-AP teachers to help teach pre-AP classes, we didn't give them maybe the differentiation strategies to help all the advanced students. Because in a class of 28, you may have 4 or 5 kids that qualify for SEEK and really need to be pushed. Well, we haven't given them necessarily the training to push those kids within the regular classroom day. So we want to provide some of our pre-AP teachers with some of the same professional development opportunities that our SEEK teachers are getting. That was lacking last year. We're looking to correct that next year. That's not changing. We're looking to transition from district-wide SEEK field trips to school-level field trips so that we can provide more opportunities and make that more of a local decision instead of a district decision. We're looking to add in the district at some point in time. We would like to have what's called, we would call, Dr. Wright, correct me if I use a term you don't like, but my understanding would be an RTI and gifted coordinator. Somebody that could look at that RTI block and those requirements and what we need to be doing, but also be able to have that expertise in the field of gifted education so they can meet the needs of both students from a supervisory standpoint. Currently, we're lacking that in the district, and it's something that we truly need. Number 12 is we want to continue to provide opportunities for SEEK students and advanced students beyond the school hours. Those are things like the competitions, clubs, whether they're internal competitions within our county or moving outside the county like what you saw last week with the Invention Convention in Murfreesboro. We need to be providing our middle school students opportunities to show what they can do and to compete with people, not just in the county, but also outside of the county, because currently it's not taking place. The last item we would not have needed to look at is clearly with the restructuring, but if we're going to follow our current SEEK structure, we are going to need to look at the certification requirements for our teachers who are currently teaching SEEK. So the reason that one's yellow is that's something we didn't realize we would necessarily need to do, but based on the fact that we're going to have a transition year for SEEK, that's something we're going to be moving forward. So with that, I've given you probably more information than you thought you might know about what we're planning to do, where we've changed direction within the last few weeks and where we're going. But that is our current plan. In summary, what we're going to do next year is not really change SEEK much at all. We're going to try to provide more professional development for both SEEK teachers and also for our non-SEEK teachers. But the structure and the requirements to be in that either pull-out or in those exploratory courses will remain the same. We are going to look at having an advisory council to look at any changes moving forward to where we have input from parents that are on that and from also students, so we get input from everyone there as well. We're going to look at auditing the curriculum, making sure it meets the standards for both gifted standards, but also our state standards, and we're going to look at trying to infuse more pre-AP type activities in curriculum, or more SEEK activities in curriculum into our pre-AP classes. So there's not as much change as we were going to do. That hopefully I'll outline that for you. But we are going to continue to assess, to monitor, and to provide the best opportunity for our students that we can here in Wilson County.
Tell me once again, what are you going to do for the students, the gifted students that are not in SEEK?
They have the opportunity for pre-AP, which those students are currently in. They are going to have the opportunity to have a better RTI experience than they currently have. While they won't be getting the SEEK curriculum that the SEEK students get, we're going to try to broaden the opportunities they're receiving today so it's better, but it will not be the same as what's happening during either a SEEK exploratory class or when that SEEK pull-out occurs. By keeping the parameters the way they are now under this structure. So it will be, in my opinion, it will be better than what we have this year. It will not be equal to what a SEEK student receives. That's probably the best answer I can give you.
But our obligation as a school system is to provide the best education that we can for all of us.
Yes, sir. That is true.
And provide them with the resources that are necessary for them to receive that education.
And we're gonna do that.
We need to put an emphasis on all of our children, not just a select group that have tested good. I talked to a parent the other day, who has 2 children, and one of them tested for C, and the other one didn't at the particular time that the testing. And she told me that the one that didn't test for C was brighter than the one that did.
We have had-
That child needs to be afforded
Some of the same
opportunities too.
In our original plan, we were gonna be able to provide some of those same opportunities for both. By keeping the structure as it is, and as Dr. Wright mentioned, the state requires us to have something in grades 3 through 5. This county, and I believe it goes back almost 30 years, I could be wrong, but close to 30 years, this opportunity, the opportunities that have been provided in Wilson County have extended from grade 3 beyond 5 to also include 6 through 8. If you do that, then we fall under that same parameter. Under a restructure, we could broaden that and allow more students to participate, which was our initial plan and what we would have looked to do. By keeping it as it is now, we will provide more opportunities than they have this year. It just won't be the exact same.
Now, Dr. Wright hasn't been here as long as some of the rest of the ladies that sit out here. One of them, Jennifer and Angela, and some of those, they call people out Bill Moss. But do we have any way of tracking these SEEK students once they get into high school to see how they're doing, they're continuing to do?
We can, we'd have to do all that by
Well,
hand.
have we done it? I mean, are we doing that?
We've looked at it.
Are we doing it?
We have looked at it.
We have started to look at it. We don't have a history of data because that's not something that the county collected over time. But it's something we're committed to doing and we've started to look at moving forward. But once you get to high school, and we've had conversations with teachers, moving into high school, students go into honors or AP classes, which is where a lot of these needs are met because SEEK doesn't exist in our high schools.
I know that.
And what our teachers have told us is that they can't differentiate students who have been in SEEK and those who have not. That those students that you mentioned that are gifted, maybe the example you gave of the parent you spoke to where one tested in and one didn't, they could both go into an honors class and both excel. And teachers say that based on their work in class, based on their test data, there's no really discernible difference between what those students are bringing to the table in high school. And that's coming from conversations with some of the teachers.
Jennifer, you're my numbers person. Is there any way, Dr. Wright, if we could sort of do this just to see how they're doing once they get there?
Sure.
I'd like to see that if we could. I know we can't do
Would
it
you like
right
compare
now
to the-
overnight or,
Like AC, yeah, give me a little bit of time.
that's what's saying.
We just
She's a little
had
over-
300 boxes.
Yeah, she's been working all day.
But I think that would give us a lot of
Yeah.
good information.
And that's something, Mr. Chair, too, because that is something that we have looked at in a very soft way, particularly as far as when we see students transitioning from middle school into high school. That was the purpose and the reasoning behind making sure that we had a viable middle school curriculum. That is something that there's very few districts in this country that have figured out as far as what I refer to as the gap between elementary and high school by having without repeating what they've learned in elementary school. So that was the first phase, and with that pre-AP and honors curriculum. There's other pieces that when you start looking at particularly gifted and talented youngsters, there's that affect, that creativity, the inventiveness that we see in students, and then we also have the cognitive, the intellectual side of it. So there's a lot of pieces that when you get into middle school, they sometimes get lost, and that was one of the big concerns, that we didn't have opportunities for our middle school students other than what they had within their SEEK class where they could compete with their peers. And when I'm saying compete with peers, there's future problem solving, there's Odyssey of the Mind, which there's over 1,000 students that will meet at the University of Tennessee at the Knoxville campus every May. They come from all over the country. Well, there's even some foreign countries that are involved that with the best and brightest of the country, primarily middle school students, compete. We have no one that's participating in that. You've got forensics, there's the future problem solving that at one time we did, there's missed opportunities. But with all that, once our kids are transitioning into high school, that's where it becomes one of the things that when you look at the lack of numbers for national merit, that's a distinguishing factor. When you look at ACT scores, and again, several of you've heard my lecture, we're one of 13 states that requires the ACT. All you have to do is sit, bubble in your name, you met a graduation requirement. You don't have to pass it, you don't have to fail it. You have to sit for it. Well, we got into a lull just sitting for that, and what we're saying now is that's a national standard, that's a ban. And we are starting to see that increase in that ACT. But the thing that becomes important that when we start banding those numbers, and we have looked at those, between SEEK and non-SEEK, we're not seeing something that will distinguish a difference or it's a discernible difference. And the thing that concerns me, and this is something that I've had Jennifer in her spare time start looking at these pieces for me, because that's how you improve, folks. You have to look at where your gaps are. We have not had a perfect score in the ACT. Well, you said, so what? That's important. Because we're seeing that as far as other districts, like districts, that start looking at those numbers as far as they start accumulating and counting those, because that means that when we look at the rigor of the curriculum of what we're offering and the expectations we have for our kids, we also start looking at that band as far as where we start ranging in the 20 to 30 range, because those, again, those are financial impacts. Those are dollars. So there's a lot of pieces. Then the other thing that we look at as far as those kids that start entering into those advanced placement classes when they get into high school. The expectation being that if they've come through a strong SEEK program, they should start availing themselves. Now, we increase the numbers? Absolutely. But there's another part to that. They need to take the exam. Not about the weighted grade, it's about how well you're going to perform on that AP exam. So there's a lot of pieces here as far as trying to pull and challenge our kids instead of accepting that the status quo is okay. And, you know, that can be unsettling, but the thing is that we're looking at our programs, looking at our delivery, making sure that we're giving our kids the same opportunities that their like peers are getting in other districts. And I'm telling you, they're not. Shame on us.
Well, the thing, Dr. Wright, that I don't want to do as a district is to forego any opportunity that we have for true gifted students to miss an opportunity to be with their peers in a setting. We put 1 hour a week into our SEEK program per student. Is that correct?
At a minimum, yes, sir.
Okay.
They get at least an hour a week, some get 3 times as much, but yes.
But let's just say it's an hour a week. If we take that time away, and as Mr. Carl said earlier, that may be the only hour of the week that they fully blossom, because they may be intimidated, or as someone said the other day, they hold back in fear of being ridiculed by their peers for always having the right answer, or having the right answer the majority of the time. So if this 1 hour gives a gifted child an opportunity to blossom, then, you know, we may have the next Werner von Braun or the next Robert Oppenheimer.
And Mr. Weather, we certainly do not disagree with that, but the thing that we will also say as far as looking at it, there's been very little change in much of what's being offered.
But that's our fault. That's not our students' fault. That's our fault for not improving the rigor.
That's what I said, that's shame on us.
So I'm saying we turn the mirror around on ourselves and challenge us to be better. Not take that gift away from those kids. Let's make it better for them by improving ourselves.
And that was the challenge as far as to Mr. Wilson's department, was that very thing. And again, that's what we're working on. And really the transition year. And I want to thank, I see Clint Brewer back there, and Christy as far as having a meeting. And I wasn't specifically invited, but I did show up, but that was good for me as well, because again, listening to the concerns, listening to what parents thought they heard and what our real intent was. But the most important message was listening to the kids, because it was really consistent, particularly from the younger ones, talking about having a fun place, a safe place, knowing that they could go there and be themselves, And it was okay, as one child told me, said to be nerdy. Another one said that my favorite class was Seek and Band. That really worried me, but I understood what he was saying. And so that, again, we're listening.
Okay.
But that's how we improve as well, as far as that we cannot continue the way, it's, again, where we were without thinking we're going to get better results. But the thing is, as far as growing our kids, but making sure they're also going to be ready for that big transition into high school.
Well, I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop. Everyone can't be a Rhodes Scholar. Everyone can't win the Merit Scholarship
That's true.
Award. But for those that can, we need to help them get there. And that's our challenge. It's not their problem if they're smart enough and we don't give them the tools. It's our challenge to get them there.
Amen.
And I won't stop until we have the best program, okay? So
That's where we're going.
I don't blame the parents for trying to make the program better. I don't blame them for wanting to form together and find out answers. What I blame, if there's a stall in our program, I blame us for not pushing it harder and farther.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's what we're working on.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank particularly Bonnie Wilson and his, department, that this is something that, and again, it's not this piece, but really looking at the whole middle school program.
And I believe everybody that works here echoes everything you say, Mr. Weathers. We want to push those, and we don't want to take opportunities away. It may need to be restructured, it may need to be looked at different, it may, eventually, it might be called something different, but that opportunity is not going to diminish, it's not going to.
I don't think that matters as long as we do it right.
We're going to do it, and I will say this year there's a better middle school experience academically than has ever been in this county by what Dr. Wright started last year. I was not here to be a part of getting that in place. I'm glad to be here to be a part of what we're doing right now. I believe next year will be even better. It will be year 2. We're going to look at making some changes. We're going to look at making it better to push those kids. And I think year 3 naturally will be better as well, because we're going to continually change, and we're not going to sit back and say, we're okay being a good district. We want to be a great district. We want our students to be great, and we're not going to be satisfied until we meet the needs of all
And the
kids.
exploratory and the enrichment courses, that's something, again, working with the middle schools. I mean, and Mr. Marlowe's back there, he's got his teams working on that as far as opportunities for kids, particularly our best and brightest, whether it's looking at robotics, looking at coding, as far as those opportunities, but we have to build those. And our kids are excited about those opportunities. But the thing is, we have to get there because, again, we've not had really a good planning session. And, Mr. Marlowe, as far as his numbers continue to grow, it becomes very difficult to find in a schedule. And there is nothing that's more complex than a middle school schedule, even more so than a high school schedule. So that's something, again, that's part of that process of working through. And the thing that we were also reminded by parents that not all students are excited by math and science. And it was one of those kids, just like the young man told me, his favorite class was band. And we've got to make sure that we give as much energy and thought to those fine arts and humanities at that middle school level. And because again, when we talk, and you heard it tonight, there's a lot of focus on STEM or math and science. And we have some youngsters there that get as much excitement and energy from getting into whether it's band, orchestra, choral music, the arts, or even as some would just as soon pick up a good book to read. And so those are things that we're encouraging as well. But we are in that planning stage of looking at, as you said, what we need to be providing for our boys and girls, and that's what we're working on. So.
Well, I talked to Mr. Wilson a couple of weeks ago about a good tracking and monitoring process for tracking our gifted children through this process to see how they are actually improving. And that goes along with what Mr. Tomlinson, I think, just asked for. But you're more interested, I think, in the high school grades, but I think we have to develop a process all the way through the school, as long as they're here, to see if, in fact, what we're doing is working.
And again, I was glad that Mr. Wilson brought up the RTI process too, because that's one of the things that we're finding as we work with youngsters, whether it's intervention, remediation, or looking at that enrichment side of it, that we're finding some youngsters that could get lost, that are very bright youngsters, but still might need intervention in certain areas. So that's something, again, that we're addressing and working on as well, making sure that we are meeting the individual needs of our kids. Have we got it perfected yet? Absolutely not, but we're on a good start. Some kids, the other night, that Monday meeting, gave me some good insight on their pre-AP classes. And one little girl said that she had to spend too much time tutoring some of her friends. Well, need to pay attention to that.
Well, this rings very near and dear to my family. We had a very close friend of our families that tested as a genius at a very young age, missed the opportunity to go through a program like SEEK or any other gifted program. Now the kid's 30 years old and has a hard time keeping a job flipping hamburgers just because he lost interest in school. So I won't see that happen to any child. Okay?
I understand, absolutely. And you have my commitment on that.
Thank you.
That's something that's been very important, something that I present. And Mr. Wilson, wanted you just one more thing as far as an update on the 17-18 school calendar. Again.
I got something to say about SEEK before we get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Donna, I thank you for bringing me up as a gifted person, but I don't think anybody's going to figure out that I don't need to go to the SEEK program, okay? That's no stretch of the imagination. But what I do want to say is that when this headline came out, whether it was should have at the time or not is really immaterial. The perception was that that's what we were doing to the program. We are destroying our SEEK program. And for whatever that's worth, it just destroyed it and everybody got up in arms, and I'm glad we did that. I wondered, sitting here, if we had not got people involved, and I see several in the audience, Chad and Glenn and Christy, would we be in the same spot today, or would we have went along and done away with SEEK, as we know it? SEEK is very vital to me, if nothing for those kids to go to I keep hearing a safe place, and I really think it's vital to what we need to do for those guys. So, somebody mentioned we don't do any outside competition. Now, whose fault is that? Like Don said, that's our fault. I made some notes all over this piece of paper. The SEEK committee that comes up, I see 4 or 5 parents here that need to be involved on it. I know they would work diligently on that committee as we get prepared for the SEEK program going down the road. So, she put a new battery in this whole thing. I need to use it up for just so I can talk here. Oh, one other thing. It to me also brings up the fact, enhances the fact that we need all of our schools to be K-5, 6, 8. We need middle schools in the east end of the county, because I'm sitting here looking at some numbers. If we collected all those, could we make a good SEEK program here? So we need to really take a hard look at our middle school program here on the east end of the county, because it's really working well on the west end of the county, despite Mr. Marlowe. But that's all.
Since my name was brought up, can I say?
No rebuttal.
I'd like to respond to that thing about the middle schools on the east end of the county. And I don't, where are those numbers at here as to what the numbers were of the school? You have, in grade 8 level, you had 11 at Carroll Oakland, you had 6 at Tucker's Crossroads, you had 57 at West Wilson, and you had, mind you, you had 80. I believe if you look at percentage-wise from the number of kids that would be in those classes, your percentage of kids in SEEK students are probably running as high or maybe higher than what you have in your 1,200 class schools.
So you're saying we don't need middle schools here?
I'm saying, I'm saying the kids at Tucker's Crossroads and Carroll Oakland and Southside are probably getting just as good as they're getting in the schools in Mount Juliet area.
But we can't offer a certain program.
So, well, we're working on that. I think Dr. Wright's already told you and told this board that we have a program in place where that our schools, our teachers at Carroll Oakland and Tucker's and Southside are collaborating with the school teachers at the other schools. So, the bigger the school is don't necessarily mean it's that much better. That's what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor.
And we're working on consistency of programming as
I
well.
got a question before you get off your report.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But you had a question for Monty about the calendar?
Yeah, that's just an update on the calendar. I just want to remind the board first that last year we adopted 2 years as far as through 16-17, and charged the calendar committee to start working on the 17-18 calendar. And so I just, as far as there's been some misleading information circulating about what's coming out of that committee, and that, Monty, if you could just update quickly.
The calendar committee's had just one meeting. At this point in time, they were supposed to have a second today, and we had to reschedule due to the fact we had the work session and the special call meeting today. But basically, we've had one meeting to share some information, to gather input, to hear from both teachers, parents, administrators. We have all those individuals, those different groups on the committee. There's about, I think, close to 20 individuals serving on the committee, to where information was shared. And actually, from that just that first meeting, we've had 3 different calendars that I've been asked to look at trying to make work in terms of the parameters we're given by the State Department of Education. We have to meet so many days, certain requirements. So what I did after that first meeting was come up with those 3 different calendar proposals, shared those with all the calendar committee, and at this point there hasn't been any other discussion, so I don't have any information. There has been misinformation shared on social media that we were looking to change next year's calendar. That is not on the table at this point in time. The calendar is set. We're talking about the 17-18 school year. So that's where we are.
17-18?
Yes, 17-18. Yes, we're in 16-17 is approved.
Yeah,
So yes.
17-18 is approved too.
No.
We approved 2 calendars last year.
This year's
and
next year's. We do not have a calendar for
We're going after the
17-18.
third. This year was approved, and next year was approved.
16-17.
This is 15-16.
15-16
Approved.
was approved last year, and 16-17.
What year are we in?
It goes fast.
We're next year's set, no changes. We're looking at 17-18, so we're almost 18 months.
And the thing, just so everyone will understand, as far as state requirements, is 180 instructional days. The state allows you to stockpile. So for every 30 minutes you add to a day, you can count up a day every 13 days to come up with 13 days. And that's how, when everyone starts to calculate, how did you come up with that? Those are the guidelines that the state allows us. And then everyone gets excited with stockpile, because those are also not only professional development days, but inclement weather days.
We have to have 4 administrative days in the calendar. You have to have parent-teacher conference. There's all kinds of little bits and pieces we have to make sure are there. But right now, the committee would, at our next meeting, we will look at 3 different options, all 3 of which generated from ideas the committee had from our first meeting. So that's where we are.
Just a question though, I think a couple of years ago, we done away with a lot of the half days. Is that working better for most everybody?
Well, as far as, yes, it works better for parents for one thing.
Yeah, for parents,
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
okay.
And you remember we had the discussion last year is how many half days were allowed. And so when we started looking as far as what are we accomplishing by putting a half day here, parents have been very appreciative because it was disruptive for them.
They just had to take off in the middle of the day to take it, okay.
And some,
That's been worked well.
I know, not to speak on behalf of all teachers, but I know those half days really put a dent at the elementary level in terms of their curriculum for the week, because it's so much set in terms of what you do on certain days, and a lot of times that threw them off as well. So I think from the teacher side as well, that not having those, it protects their time with their students also.
Also like ready to be known too, that Mr. McNeese and Ms. Armstead both serve on the calendar committee. So there is representation from the board to the school level too,
So
so
we can blame it on them if they mess it up.
that's a good way.
They actually, Ms. Armstead came up with one of the possible options for us to look at in terms of the 1 of 3 examples, came from her at that meeting, so she.
Blame me.
No, I'm not blaming you, it's an option. That's the whole point of this committee, is to explore options. It's not to move an agenda from one individual person or from one body. It's to look at different groups of individuals. We have, as I said, parents, we have teachers, we have administrators, and we have district staff on there as well. So we have a good group.
I can remember a long, long time ago when I was on the board, and it was so long ago that we even traveled around to our schools and had our meetings, so that tells you how long ago that's been. I think I just got through being a busboy at the Last Supper. But the thing that I heard about the calendar has always been commentary about the calendar committee. The calendar. And the thing that I heard from the teachers was, back in the day, well, we come up and we adopt a calendar, and y'all will never approve it, never go by it. So we tried to move away from that, and that's when we started trying to get a board member on there, or two, to help adopt the calendar committee, so,
Mr. McNeese and I will
is
take full
anybody
responsibility
that's
for it.
still around back in the day, Bill Moss, back in those days, you know, that was always the word. We adopt a calendar, y'all never approve it. So maybe now we can approve it.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, just to wrap up my report, last month, you as the board chair requested this office to provide the board with costs and numbers based on some district needs. They either have been presented to several of you individually or been sent to the board, specifically some of our high school athletic needs. And with that, information was developed particularly as far as looking at the Wilson Central High School track, looking at what was needed at Mount Juliet High School track, and also looking forward to two high schools with that. And some figures were presented. Wilson High School is coming in at about $425,000, and the surfacing for Mount Juliet High School is around $65,000. And the thing that becomes so complex about this, and again, going back to your original question, is that you're really rebuilding a new surface. And Mr. Hall, you might have to correct me on some of this, but when you look at rebuilding that new surface, you're talking about paving, you're talking about rebuilding a drainage system there, and everything but the base. But here's the other thing that many people are not aware of, is the abuse that those high school tracks take. As far as you can't control what people wear on them, you can't control how they're being used. But you also have to remember that Wilson Central is the oldest high school, which some people find that hard to believe. I'm getting a nod over here. It's the oldest high school in the district. And so there's been a lot of wear there. Mount Juliet High School is now needing to be resurfaced. But with that, when I was getting and preparing this, by 2020, Lebanon High School in Watertown will need resurfacing work as well. So we would estimate that it's probably going to be, it'll get today's cost, probably around $65,000 as well. But the thing that recognized, and I understood, as far as, your question, Mr. Tomlinson, as far as looking at that, and many of you have heard me say this, that yes, we're in a pretty aggressive building program right now, pretty ambitious too, but we also need to take care of what we have as well, and that's something that we have to get into a cycle of making sure that we also provide the upkeep. And I know that we've had conversations with the principal, Mr. Mayfield, with his concerns there, but with that, I don't know what else you might have wanted beyond that, but that's what, as far as looking at cost and need right now. And barring no questions, that concludes my report for this evening.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, since Dr. Wright's already brought it up, I was going to bring it up under new business about Wilson Central High School needing some improvements. Get that away. I did meet with Mr. Mayfield over the weekend. He's got a priority that we have been working on for several years, but I'd like to go back a step. I won't take too long. In 2001 or 2002, whenever we were trying to get that school open, the level of attention that was paid to that school as far as the football field, the baseball field, the softball field, the track, was completely different than it is now. We spend so much more money on getting our athletic fields ready than we did. When we started on Wilson Central's football field, I had to go home and get a bush hog, just to bush hog the barn weeds off, just to get down to where the grass was supposed to be sown. And we hauled off rocks as big as your head and tree grubs off the baseball field and softball field for days and days just to get it to where we could work the dirt up. Now, it's ready to play whenever it's turned over to the school. But that's not been the case at Wilson Central ever since we built the school. Now, we did the best we could at that time. We were in the learning curve. We hadn't built a lot of schools at that time. Mr. Tomlinson was on the board then. We live and we learn. And now I'm just saying, there's some things we really need to do at Wilson Central just to bring it up to a minimal par level with our other high schools. One is the track, that $425,000, whatever you came up with. Thank you for doing that. We need to fast track that. The next thing we need to do is fast track that softball and wrestling building, because we've got over 150 wrestlers in the Wilson Central program, and we won the state championship last year with a girls softball team that has to dress in the girls' bathroom in the main school for a ball game. They don't have dressing room. So we need to fast track that. I've met with the coaches last summer. We just didn't have the money to address it. They need to build about a 15 to 20,000 square foot building to house the wrestling team and the softball team, and maybe part of the track. But that's another thing that needs to be fast tracked. And I ask you to look into that right away. The next thing is they're having some issues with some of the bathroom tiles upstairs in some of the bathrooms. So
Mr. Mayfield's brought that to our attention.
I would encourage you to go see him and find out what we need to do there to get that fixed, so we don't have a liability there. And the final thing for now is the football field house. There's over 100 athletes on the football program, and they have 6 shower heads. 6 for 100 kids. That's not very good odds of getting a shower when you get finished with football practice, okay? So we need to look at what expansion opportunities there are on the football field house, so that we can at least have enough room for the kids to move around and take a shower if they'd like. But I think the wrestling team only has 1 or 2 shower heads for 100 kids. So we just have to pay a little bit of attention to Wilson Central, because we've got the other schools at college level. I mean, the college I went to, we would have been very happy to have what our high schools have here in Wilson County. But we need to do this. We need to work hard to get this in this year's budget.
And to add to that, something that I guess was surprising to me, that you look at a minimum acreage for many of your high schools at 60, and didn't learn until just recently. There's 42 acres at Wilson Central, and I mean, so you're talking about a very small footprint in where you can make these adjustments and also build new facilities. So that's also a big concern for me as a former high school principal, as far as where do you start placing things and at what expense, because something has to give when you only can have 42 acres, which again is very limited for a high school.
Well, there's enough space between the softball field, the soccer field, the field house, and the baseball field in that little section there to put about a 15,000 square foot building. Went over there last year, stepped it off, measured it with the coaches. It'll fit, and that should be enough for the wrestling team to put 2 or 3 mats down, and for the softball team to be able to have a dressing room and 1 small hitting area for their softball team. So, and I would put that in form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Then we look into that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I would like to say a little bit about that myself. I think we might need to, when we come time to develop our budget, we may need to put a line item in there for athletic. And so that's something other, guys, whenever, ladies, when we get ready to start developing our budget, we may need to look at putting some kind of money in there in a special fund to do that kind of thing with.
I agree, and I think another thing we have to do too is put maintenance money in for our school buildings. We're spending $30, $40, $50 million to build a high school, and we don't put a lot of money into maintaining it. I know it's always been a bone of contention to get needs assessment money passed for maintenance, because there's so many other priorities that the county has. But I think we're doing our schools a disservice or injustice by not keeping a good coat of paint on them, fixing leaks, and doing things that will make our buildings last another 10, 20, 30 years. So, I think it's certainly something we need to have another discussion about. But I think this Wilson Central stuff needs to be done as quickly as we can get everything lined up for it to be done.
Talk about the track at Wilson Central.
They've never had a meet there, Mr. Thomas.
I know that, and I remember going out there whenever it was just gravel laid down, and the late Don Franklin and I walked down to the, I guess it would be the north end, look back toward the southeast. And I told Don and Dr. Duncan at the time, I said, guys, that track's running up here. And I'll never forget Don getting down like he's studying a foot. And he's down like that, and he said, it is, isn't it? They had the grade on the track running uphill. Now, for Wilson Central kids that's running downhill, it's been okay. But they had to run uphill.
Is that a true story?
And that's a true story. And matter of fact, the guy that was putting the track in, they had to go back and redo it. They had to go back and do it.
Well, I won't argue with Don that we need some upgrades. But I also think we need to take this under advisement, do a study on it, instead of just making a motion on it today. I know we could, if you're talking, what, $500,000?
No, it'd be more than that.
I think we could put $500,000 into our SEEK program and do a lot of good too. So, you know, I'm not ready to vote on that tonight, although we do need to do some things with athletic programs out there. But some of our programs, taking them on themselves, not only to keep it up, but to enhance their facilities. So I don't know what the situation out at Central anywhere else is, so that's my 2 cents.
I'm glad you said that, Wayne, because I was gonna bring it up anyway, because I talked to the baseball coach at Lebanon High School, and he's coming with a plan to ask us to allow them to build them a new locker room because they're out of space for their locker room. So, but that's a project that they're gonna do on their own, and he's in the process of developing a plan and got an architect working with him, and they'll be bringing that to us too. Don, did you want to make that in the form of a motion?
I sure do. I don't want to wait any longer, Mr. Thompson. We've been waiting for 14 years. I don't want to wait another year. I don't want to wait. I want to get this ball rolling so that we can get something done. The kids at Wilson Central deserve it, and I want to get it done for them.
Okay. Do you want to make that in the form of, yes, sir, do you want to make that in the form of a motion that we ask our director of schools and our finance director to see if there's any money in the present budget?
I'd like to get the plans together and then bring it to us to review, and then at that point, we can look at what monies are available for us to work with.
As you stated, Mr. Mayfield has done a lot of research.
Yes, sir.
He's spent a lot of time looking at other facilities around the southeast and what kind of services they have and what would be best suited for him. So, how do you want to word your motion?
I would like for Dr. Wright to put together a plan on repairing the track to where competitive events can be held on the Wilson Central track, and what it's going to take to put the wrestling and softball facility in on the campus per the specs from the softball and the wrestling coach. And I've got a lot of documentation I can share on that. And then to evaluate the bathrooms, to find out what we need to do to fix the floor tiles, and then to look at the football field house for expansion opportunities, and we'll make that the last priority.
Are you asking for a prioritized list?
They're in that list.
Okay, that what you just.
Track first,
okay.
building second, bathroom floors third, football field house expansion fourth.
Are we also going to include in that improvements to that gym?
Well, that's again, the resurfacing, that was $65,000 that you asked me to find out. Okay.
All right. Do I hear a second to Mr. Weathers' motion? I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Discussion?
I'm not opposed to some of these things that Mr. Webb's got. I'm not. It's not that. It's that I am not prepared to come and say, at Watertown Middle School, they need to paint this, or this, that, and the other tonight. I mean, if you want me to, I could sit here and make a list of certain items, but I would.
That's up to you.
Wait, just a minute. I don't want to vote against trying to help and get some of these things done. But just to all of a sudden say this tonight, I'm not prepared to do this.
I thought we had a needs assessment anyway in every school that was created by principals and presented yearly.
We've been trying to get this done for years. For 14 years to get a track that's decent to have a competitive event on.
So are you saying it hasn't been presented previously? And
It's
hasn't
been presented many times previously, but it's never been given the attention that it deserves. Now we've got a track at all the other schools that can have a competitive event, and we don't have one at Wilson Central. They have a track team. They have to go somewhere else to practice.
I'm only a younger member of this board. But I've been on this board 5.5 years, and that subject has not come up about replacing some kind of track at Wilson Central. If it needs, we'll try to fix it. I mean, I want them to have what they need. But, for example, I know we spent $50,000 or $60,000 leveling and draining on that field not long ago.
Not Wilson Central.
I beg your
Lebanon
pardon.
High School.
I beg your
It
pardon.
was Lebanon High Schools.
No.
We did Central the year before on the football field.
Okay.
I want to help you do these things, but just to come up here and say that I want you to start developing these plans in 5 minutes, this, that, and the other, I think we need to look at what we want to put in the hopper on doing these things from a system-wide perspective.
Well, I'm putting this in my hopper, Mr. Robinson, okay? You can either vote for it or not, that's your vote, okay?
We won't know until we develop a plan.
That's right.
And that's what you've asked.
And that's
That's
what
what
we've
I
asked
asked
you
you
to
to
do.
do.
That's what we're at, that's what I'm asking to do, is for Dr. Wright, Mickey, and whoever else needs to be involved, develop a plan to see what it's gonna take to fix these things that we're talking about tonight. We're not gonna ask for the money tonight.
I'm not saying that you're saying what we talked about tonight, but there may be other considerations that somebody else might want to consider if this is what we're doing right now. Because you realize the way we work down through the years on some of this stuff, for example, if you're, in the way we handle maintenance on a athletic field right now, do you know if your irrigation system comes out, that that's your responsibility? You know that?
That's probably the kind of thing, Bill, that we need to talk about.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but before we start doing this, we're gonna start drawing our plans for this, then maybe we need to sit down in a room and talk about this. I mean, whether it be a work session, whether it be, gathering your people, Dr. Wright, not how about your personnel, your charge of personnel, ever how we do that, but we do it from that perspective rather than all of a sudden, we're gonna do this moment. I've never seen anything work that fast, that way. And so I just, and I'm not wanting to delay it in any way.
Well, then vote yes.
I'm not. Go ahead, please, I've made my say, I'm thirsty.
The problem with bringing it over, having this as a subject of conversation, move forward. I just didn't want to spend time tonight, but let's move forward.
That's the most sense he's made in
What I would, I would nod on this, and, but what I would like to do is, I would like for Donna and her staff to take what's been presented to her tonight, and us come back later on, how long you think it'd take you to get something together?
I'll be on it. I mean, when you ask me,
Okay.
I start doing information.
All right, then we'll come back and have a work session to talk about all this. We're not gonna spend any money tonight, but I do think we need to go ahead and put this thing in progress, in place, in motion. So, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. We've had our discussion, call the question, all in favor of Dr. Wright and her staff putting together some numbers, and we'll notify the board as to when we can have a work session to talk about this. And in the meantime, if you know of any other things along this line, needs to be addressed in any particular school, bring that with you when you come to the work session, or get it to Dr. Wright. And before that time, where we have it all on the table. Now, we're not very far away from starting to establish our budget, when we'll be working on that, Mickey. So, we need to get this in the hopper, as you say, have the money. Yes, sir.
Was that in, the way you worded that, was that Mr. Weathers' motion?
Yes, sir. I think that's the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
that's
wanna-
the way I interpret it.
That's different.
That's right.
Okay? All right.
Before we can carry it to get funded, we gotta know what the
We gotta know
numbers
what's
are.
gonna cost. All right, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show pass unanimously. All right, Dr. Wright.
Just getting information.
Is that the end of your
That was the end of my report.
Recommendations from the director of school.
Did you accept my report?
Well, I'll get ready to it.
So moved.
Second.
One other question, and I don't know, Kenny came over here and told me that we needed to vote on Scott's or Ms. Bunch's presentation.
To accept it for the state, to accept the application.
That was part of her recommendation, I heard.
Oh, that was part of it, okay, I missed that part. Okay, we need to vote on that. All right, all in favor of voting on approving Scott Walters and Ms. Melissa Bunch's presentation tonight to approve the state, vote aye.
Aye.
We have a motion first.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Armstrong, second by Mr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let it show pass unanimously. All right, approve the director of schools, motion by Mr. Mack, Mr. Weathers, and I hear a second. Accept Dr. Donald's report. Second. All right, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it's pass unanimously. All right, Dr. Donald.
I'm getting tired.
Been here a long time.
Mr. Chair, I'm asking for approval for the Wilson County School Fee Schedule, which again, this is an annual presentation to the board for 2016, 2017. If you'll notice that as far as some that have been eliminated, but I want to bring to your attention on the second page where we have special notes. Number 4, we have TCA rule. There isn't a TCA rule, that should be rules and regulations. So that typo will be corrected and ask for approval so we can get this posted for next year.
Heard the recommendation of the director, I hear a motion. Motion by Ms. Armstrong, I hear a second. Second by Mr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor of the recommendation of the director, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let it show be passed unanimously.
And next, I'm asking for approval for the textbook adoption and the textbook adoption committee as written. As a reminder, this was the CTE adoption. You have listed within that tab as far as the committee, the schools, and the representatives. You have the recommendation, and then you also have a copy of the summary of meetings and dates within your pack as well, so I ask for approval.
Heard the recommendation of the director on the approval of textbook adoption and textbook adoption committee as it pertains to the CTA curriculum. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Ms. Armstrong, do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Robinson. Any discussion?
Was there supposed to be a list of textbooks attached to that, Dr. Wright? There wasn't one as part of what I had. I just had the sign-off sheets and a few other sheets, but no list of textbooks.
Okay, and I guess it was because I had seen the list of textbooks, and it was one that as far as, again, that as far as signing off, Ms. Clemens, do you have?
She can just email it to
Okay,
us.
because it was a very limited, and again, it was a small adoption this year just with CTE, and it was also looking, I think it was IT, no, information technology, advanced manufacturing, and I can't remember the last one.
Okay, that's fine. If you could just email it to us, that'd be great. Thank you.
That social study stuff.
No, sir.
Do we have some parents who serve on that committee?
Yes, it is, well, when you look over there, that's a requirement, and so,
All right.
was it voted on?
Not yet. No, we haven't voted yet.
Moved and seconded.
We're in the discussion stage. Any more discussion? All in favor of of approving the textbook adoption and adoption committee, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, let it show this passion.
And just as a note, Mr. Chair, on the last page, you have where it notes, throughout the review process, committee members met with their school staff to compile feedback regarding each vendor, teachers, administrators, and parents, which is a requirement now on the textbook adoption, as part of the contributing members, so it's in your documentation.
Any new business come before the board?
Yeah, I think I have one. He was supposed to have been here tonight and was not. Mr. Tracy Garrett, and we go through this most every year, but Mr. Garrett has a child that's gone through our school system out at W.A. Wright, started at W.A. Wright, daughter's at Mount Jim Middle now, and she wants to stay with all her friends at Mount Jim High School. So I would like to move that we allow that to happen in the best interest of the child, who is Caitlin Garrett. So I do that in form of a motion.
Got a motion from Mr. McNeese that Gary transfer be approved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second by Mr. Withers for the purpose of discussion. All right, discussion.
Mr. Chair, if I can add this, is information I sent to you the other day. Just as a reminder, this family presented last year. They brought their realtor with them. So they were in the process of selling their home and asked the board be indulgent as far as allowing them to stay in the Mount Juliet schools. So that's just as far as context and a reminder.
Stan, not here, he didn't go.
He was here earlier.
How long has this request been going on?
For several years.
Is
this
this
It
make them
predates
jump
me.
through the hoops every year?
It predates me.
Excuse me, not every year. Every year they change to a different school.
Is this a grade ending? I mean,
She's
is
good,
this
even
child-
the
is
Mount
this-
Juliet Middle, ready to go to Mount Juliet High School.
And what did we tell them in our last time they,
They said they were gonna move.
I know.
And you gave
They
them
were
a year.
denied this year for next year.
But last year you gave them a year in consideration because they did have their realtor present with them saying that she had the house.
The grade, the school, at the end of the school year, were they instructed, since that was and that's the way we've been doing it, when they get,
To a terminal grade?
when they get to that ending grade in that school, then that we haven't approved that.
Yes, and that's been fairly consistent coming out of the office, yes, sir.
We'll leave it, each situation stand on its own.
You know, last year, they came by and they brought Ms. Tate with them, who was serving as their real estate agent. And she made a real passionate plea on behalf of the family and talked about how that they had lowered the price of their house 2 or 3 different times. And they were gonna sell the house, it was gonna move, and they were gonna relocate into the school zone where that they were wanting to go to. I'm all about doing what's best for the student. But with the real estate market as it is today, I have a hard time believing that you couldn't sell your house if you're really serious about doing it. So, and that's what worries me about this. I feel like that maybe we've been used, and that they really not all that serious about moving and selling their home and moving into their preferred zone. That's and I wish Mr. Moss was here where he could give us more of the history on what's happened on this particular case.
I just.
Does it have to be, how does that have to be?
They presented a request, a transfer request last month. Every week, Mr. Moss meets in my office. We go over every request, as far as going through the schools for open enrollment, looking at employee requests, and that's reviewed every week. And so 2 weeks ago, the application for transfer was brought in and it was denied.
Okay. Does this transfer have to be granted tonight?
No, sir, I mean, Mr. Garrett's not here to appeal the denial, so, again, I think Mr. McNeese said he was supposed to be here tonight, which I didn't have any knowledge of, but I think Mr. McNeese was acting on his behalf, possibly.
You know why he wasn't here when?
I do not know.
Okay.
And I don't know how, of course, he lives in 5 Oaks, I'm not sure how, they wouldn't even allow me to drive that neighborhood myself. Relatively live in there.
We had a motion and a duly second on the floor on the request for out of zone for, we didn't know the child's name.
Yes, Caitlin.
Caitlin Gary. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of granting the request for Caitlin Gary, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Let it show that it failed 4-1. Any other business to come before the board tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize Mr. Sam Green. He's here, going to be running for school board in Zone 6. I'd just like to recognize him and thank him for coming tonight to learn a little bit. He may want to run out the door and get that petition after tonight, but anyway, just would like to recognize Mr. Green. If you raise your hands, everybody can see you. Thank you for coming. Good to see you.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Entertainer, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion.